Welcome to Morrison Associates, Emma. Sarah from HR beamed at me as I signed the final paperwork. We're so excited to have you on the team. I couldn't stop smiling. After 6 months of rejections and dead-end interviews, I finally had a real job at a real company. The glass building, the modern offices, the motivational posters about respect and teamwork, everything screamed success. Thanks, Sarah. I can't wait to get started. Let me introduce you to Jessica, your direct supervisor, Sarah said, leading me down the hallway. Jessica, this is Emma, our new marketing coordinator. Jessica shook my hand warmly. Great to meet you, Emma. I've heard wonderful things about your portfolio. The office tour was impressive. Mark from accounting waved from his cubicle, Lisa from marketing offered to show me the coffee machine, and David from IT promised to set up my computer by lunch. Then I met him. Mr. Morrison himself walked out of the corner office, commanding attention from everyone in the room. You must be Emma, he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, confident. Welcome to the family. We're going to do great things together. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I'm honored to be here. Please call me Richard. We're all family here. He smiled, and I felt that rush of validation I'd been craving for months. As he walked away, Jessica whispered, He doesn't usually introduce himself to new hires personally. You must have made quite an impression. I spent my first week working late, arriving early, double-checking every email. The salary was perfect, enough to finally move out of my cramped studio and help Mom with her medical bills. My little brother Jake was counting on me to help with his college tuition, too. You're settling in nicely, Jessica observed on Friday afternoon. Morrison mentioned you're exactly what this company needs. I felt proud, accomplished. Finally, my hard work was paying off. I had no idea that my dedication would soon become the very thing he'd use against me. You look lovely today, Emma, Mr. Morrison said as I walked past his office on Monday morning. Thank you, I replied, continuing to my desk. It seemed like normal workplace politeness. But then it happened again. Tuesday and Wednesday. That color is stunning on you, Emma, he called out during Thursday's staff meeting. I noticed Jessica's expression change. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. Be careful, she whispered. What do you mean? Just be careful around Morrison. I didn't understand what she was getting at. The compliment seemed harmless enough. Then the conversation started getting longer. Morrison would stop by my desk, standing uncomfortably close while asking about my weekend plans. Do you have a boyfriend, Emma? A beautiful girl like you must be breaking hearts everywhere. I laughed nervously. I'm pretty focused on work right now, Mr. Morrison. Richard, remember? We're family here. During lunch, Mark approached me. Hey, Emma, can I talk to you for a second? We walked to the break room, and he lowered his voice. Morrison's been acting weird around you. Just watch yourself, okay? What do you mean weird? The way he looks at you, the comments, it's not normal boss behavior. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to stay calm. I think you're reading too much into it, Mark. He's just being friendly. But deep down, I knew Mark was right. The way Morrison's eyes lingered on me made my skin crawl. When he'd accidentally brush against me while looking over my shoulder at my computer, I'd tense up completely. I needed this job desperately. Mom's cancer treatments were expensive, and Jake's college acceptance letter was sitting on my kitchen table. I couldn't afford to make waves over something that might just be my imagination. You're probably right, I told Mark. I'm sure it's nothing. But I started taking different routes to the bathroom to avoid walking past Morrison's office. I began eating lunch at my desk instead of the break room. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the sick feeling in my stomach told me otherwise. The worst part was the special projects. Morrison started calling me into his office for assignments that seemed unnecessary. Emma, I need you to reorganize these client files, he'd say, closing the door behind me. It might take a while, so get comfortable. I'd sit there for hours, feeling his eyes on me while I worked. Sometimes he'd come stand behind me, his breath on my neck as he pointed at papers. You're such a dedicated employee, Emma. I really appreciate your commitment to the job. I convinced myself it was all in my head. He was my boss. He was being professional. I was the one with the dirty mind. But the feeling of being hunted never left me. The quarterly board meeting was my chance to prove myself. I'd spent 3 weeks perfecting my presentation on the new digital marketing strategy. "You ready for this, Emma?" Jessica asked as we walked into the boardroom. "Ready as I'll ever be." The room was packed. Department heads, senior executives, Morrison's business partners, Mrs. Chen, from the board gave me an encouraging nod. Morrison sat to my right, which I took as a show of support. "Good morning, everyone," I began, clicking to my first slide. "Today, I'll be presenting our Q4 marketing strategy." The presentation was going perfectly. My research was solid, my slides were crisp, and I could see heads nodding in approval around the table. Then I felt it. Morrison's hand landed on my thigh, just above my knee. At first, I thought it was an accident. Maybe he was reaching for something and misjudged the distance. But his hand didn't move away. Instead, it pressed down deliberately, his fingers spreading across my leg. "As you can see in this demographic breakdown," I continued, my voice starting to shake. His hand began moving higher, slowly, deliberately. His fingers traced small circles on my leg through my skirt. I froze. My voice caught in my throat mid-sentence. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to continue, but all I could think about was Morrison's hand on my thigh. "I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?" Mrs. Chen asked kindly. "Of course," I managed, clicking to the next slide with trembling fingers. "Our target demographic shows..." Morrison's thumb rubbed against my leg, and when I glanced at him, he was smiling. Not at the presentation. At me. At my discomfort. At my helplessness. Sweat beaded on my forehead. The words on my slides blurred together. I could feel my face burning with shame and rage, but I couldn't do anything about it. Not here. Not in front of everyone. "Are you all right, dear?" Mrs. Chen asked, looking concerned. "Yes, I'm fine. Just a little warm in here." I forced myself to continue, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely control the presentation remote. Morrison's hand stayed there for the entire presentation, 20 more minutes of violation while I stood there powerless to stop it. Everyone was watching me present, but he was watching me squirm. When I finally reached the last slide, the applause felt hollow and distant. "Excellent work, Emma," Morrison said loudly, finally removing his hand as people began standing up. "You're really going places in this company." The board members smiled and congratulated me, completely oblivious to what had just happened. I felt sick. I felt dirty. But most of all, I felt completely alone. As people filed out, Jessica approached me. "Emma, you look pale. What's wrong?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to scream that her boss had just sexually assaulted me in front of a room full of people, but the words wouldn't come. "I'm just tired," I whispered. It was a long presentation. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "You did great. Really." I gathered my papers with shaking hands, knowing that everything had just changed. Morrison had crossed a line, and he'd done it knowing I couldn't fight back without destroying my career. The message was clear. He could do whatever he wanted to me, and no one would stop him. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Morrison's hand on my leg again. I kept replaying the meeting, wondering if anyone else had noticed. Did Mrs. Chen see something? Did Mark realize why I'd suddenly become so flustered? The next morning, facing the office felt impossible. But I needed this job. "Good morning, Emma," Morrison said cheerfully as I walked in. "Great presentation yesterday. The clients were very impressed." I managed a weak smile and hurried to my desk, but the nightmare wasn't over. Throughout the day, he found excuses to visit my workstation. "Let me just review this report," he'd say, leaning over my shoulder so close I could smell his cologne. His breath on my neck made me nauseous. When he spoke to me now, his voice had changed. It was intimate, possessive, like we shared some secret. During lunch, I finally broke down and told Lisa what had happened. Her face went white. "Emma, you need to report this to HR immediately." "But what if—" "Actually," Lisa interrupted, looking around nervously, "maybe you should think about this carefully. Morrison has a lot of power here, and Sarah, well, she's been known to protect the company's interests over employee complaints." My heart sank. If I couldn't trust HR, who could I trust? That evening, I called my best friend Rachel. You have to do something, she insisted after I told her everything. This is sexual harassment. It's illegal. You can't let him get away with this. But Rachel, he could destroy my career. One bad recommendation from him, and I'll never work in this industry again. So you're just going to let him keep assaulting you? It wasn't assault. It was inappropriate touching. Emma, listen to yourself. You're making excuses for him already. I hung up feeling more confused than ever. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just avoid being alone with him and hope he'd lose interest. I was naive to think it would be that simple. The next day, Morrison's behavior escalated. He started scheduling mandatory one-on-one meetings that I couldn't refuse without seeming insubordinate. Close the door, Emma, he'd say. We need privacy to discuss your performance. He'd move his chair uncomfortably close to mine, sometimes reaching over to point at papers and letting his hand brush against mine. You're such a talented young woman, Emma. I could really help advance your career here. The implications were always there, lurking beneath his professional words. I realized this wasn't going to stop. Morrison wasn't the type of man who gave up easily, and I was about to learn just how far he was willing to go to get what he wanted. Morrison's behavior became more aggressive after I started avoiding him. He seemed to enjoy the chase, the way I'd tense up when he entered a room. You seem tense lately, Emma, he said, during one particularly uncomfortable meeting. Is everything all right at home? You know you can talk to me about anything. His fake concern made my skin crawl. I'm fine, Mr. Morrison, just focused on work. Richard, he corrected, moving his chair closer. We've talked about this. We're family here. When I tried to bring Jessica or Mark to meetings as witnesses, Morrison would act completely professional, making me look paranoid. Emma seems a bit on edge lately, he mentioned to Jessica within my earshot. Maybe she needs some time off to deal with personal issues. I realized he was systematically undermining me, building a case that I was unstable or difficult. My work performance suffered as the stress consumed me. I made mistakes I never would have made before, and Morrison was quick to point them out publicly. Emma, this report has several errors, he announced during a team meeting. Are you sure you're handling your workload effectively? The psychological warfare was working. I felt like I was losing my mind. Then came the business trip announcement. I need someone to accompany me to Chicago for the Henderson account meeting, Morrison said during our Monday staff meeting. Emma, you know this account better than anyone. We'll leave Thursday morning and return Friday evening. The thought of being alone with him for 2 days made me physically ill, but refusing would be career suicide. Actually, I think Mark should go, I suggested desperately. He's been wanting more client exposure. Morrison's smile turned ice cold. I wasn't asking for suggestions, Emma. I was giving you an assignment. Unless you feel you're not capable of handling important responsibilities anymore? Jessica watched the exchange with worried eyes but said nothing. The entire office fell silent. Of course I can handle it, I said quietly. I'll make the arrangements. Excellent. I've already booked our rooms, adjoining ones, so we can work late on the presentation. The way he said adjoining made my stomach turn. I was trapped completely. I had 2 choices. Go on the trip and risk whatever Morrison had planned, or refuse and face the professional consequences. Either way, I felt like I was walking into a trap with no way out. Don't worry, Emma, Morrison said as the meeting ended. I'll take very good care of you in Chicago. The threat was clear, even wrapped in his professional smile. The business trip was my worst nightmare come to life. Morrison had booked us at the Palmer House, adjoining rooms on the 15th floor. Convenient, don't you think? He said as we checked in. We can work on the presentation without interruption. During the client meeting, he was perfect. Professional, charming, the ideal boss. Mr. Henderson was impressed with our proposal, and I almost forgot why I was so afraid. But the moment we left the client's office, Morrison's mask slipped. Excellent work today, Emma. Let's celebrate with dinner. I know a perfect little place. It wasn't a request. At the restaurant, he ordered wine despite my protests. Come on, Emma. Relax a little. You're always so uptight. As the evening progressed, his comments became increasingly personal. You know, Emma, you have so much potential. I could really help your career, but I need to know that you're committed to the team. The implication was crystal clear. When we returned to the hotel, he walked me to my door. I think we should discuss your future with the company more privately, he said, trying to follow me into my room. Mr. Morrison, I'm tired. Can we discuss this tomorrow? But he put his foot in the doorway, preventing me from closing the door. Emma, I think you're misunderstanding how things work here. Successful employees know how to be accommodating. His hand reached for my face, and something inside me finally snapped. I had spent months being afraid, being silent, being a victim. But in that moment, I realized I had a choice. I could continue to let him victimize me, or I could fight back. Get away from me, I said firmly, surprising us both with the strength in my voice. Excuse me? I said get away from me. Don't touch me. Morrison's face darkened with rage. You're making a big mistake, Emma. I've been very patient with you, but my patience has limits. Think carefully about your next move. The only mistake I made was not standing up to you sooner. After he left, I sat on my hotel bed and cried. But these weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of rage. I was done being afraid. I was done being silent. I took out my phone and started recording a voice memo, documenting everything that had happened. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I called the employment attorney Rachel had recommended. Santos Law Firm, this is Maria. I need help, I said. My boss has been sexually harassing me, and I need to know what my options are. Tell me everything, she said gently. It was time to fight back. Working with Maria Santos changed everything. She was sharp, experienced, and most importantly, she believed me. Sexual harassment cases can be challenging, she explained during our first meeting, but your situation has several factors working in our favor. The incident during the board meeting, the business trip, the pattern of escalating behavior, these all support your case. But how do I prove it? It's my word against his. That's why we're going to build an airtight case. From now on, you document everything, every interaction, every inappropriate comment, every time he makes you uncomfortable. Maria taught me how to keep a detailed harassment log, including dates, times, witnesses, and exact quotes when possible. I also started recording conversations on my phone whenever legally possible. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal at work while building my case. Morrison seemed to sense that something had changed. He watched me more carefully, his interactions becoming more calculated. He stopped the obvious harassment, but ramped up the psychological pressure instead. My workload doubled, deadlines became impossible, and he began criticizing my work publicly. Emma, this is the third time you've missed a deadline this month, he announced during a team meeting. I'm beginning to question whether you're suited for this position. But I wasn't the scared, isolated woman I had been before. When I finally told Lisa about the legal action, she found the courage to support me. I saw him watching you, she admitted. The way he looked at you made me uncomfortable, but I was afraid to say anything. I should have spoken up earlier. Mark came forward too, remembering several inappropriate comments Morrison had made about me over the months. He asked me once if you were dating anyone, Mark told Maria during his interview. When I said I didn't know, he said something about helping you feel more welcome at the company. It was creepy. Even Jessica, despite her initial reluctance, agreed to provide a statement about the changes she'd observed in my behavior. Emma went from being confident and outgoing to anxious and withdrawn, she told Maria. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to help. The breakthrough came when Maria discovered Morrison's history through her legal network. Emma, you're not his first victim, she said during one of our meetings. I've found 2 previous settlements the company made with female employees who filed similar complaints against Morrison. Other women went through this too? This establishes a clear pattern of behavior. Companies can't keep ignoring sexual harassment and expect no consequences. Even Sarah from HR, who I'd thought was part of the problem, reached out to me privately. I know what you're going through, she said quietly. I want to help, but I need you to know that this company will fight dirty. Are you prepared for that? I looked her in the eye. I'm more prepared than he thinks I am. For the first time in months, I felt powerful instead of powerless. The day we filed the official complaint was the day everything changed. Maria and I walked into Morrison Associates corporate headquarters armed with witness statements, documented evidence, and a timeline of systematic harassment. Morrison's face when he was called into the emergency meeting was something I'll never forget. The confident, predatory smile was replaced by confusion, then anger, then barely concealed panic. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding, the company's head attorney said, trying to take control of the room. These seem like issues that could be solved through mediation. But Maria was ready for them. She methodically laid out the timeline of harassment, the pattern of escalating behavior, and the evidence we'd collected over months. My client has documented dozens of incidents of sexual harassment, creating a hostile work environment, Maria stated firmly. This includes inappropriate touching during a board meeting witnessed by multiple people. When she mentioned the previous settlements with other female employees, the room went completely silent. Morrison sat across the table from me, no longer the powerful man who had terrorized me for months. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. This is clearly a misunderstanding, he said, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Emma is a valued employee, and I've always maintained professional boundaries. Mr. Morrison, Maria replied calmly, we have recorded conversations that directly contradict that statement. His attorney whispered urgently in his ear, while the company's legal team exchanged worried glances. The meeting lasted 4 hours. By the end, Morrison was no longer arguing innocence. He was negotiating damage control. We're prepared to offer compensation and ensure this doesn't happen again, the company attorney said. But I had made a decision. This wasn't just about money or even justice for me. It was about preventing him from doing this to someone else. I want him fired, I said clearly. I want a public acknowledgement of what happened, and I want policies put in place to protect other employees. This isn't going away quietly. Morrison's mask finally slipped completely. You ungrateful little... Richard! His attorney snapped, silencing him. The outburst was exactly what Maria had been waiting for. Gentlemen, I think we're done here for today, she said, gathering her papers. My client has made her position clear. You can respond to our formal demands through proper channels. As we left the building, Morrison called after me desperately. You'll never work in this industry again, Emma. I'll make sure of that. I turned around and looked at him one last time. You're right about one thing, Mr. Morrison. I'll never work for someone like you again. But that's because I'm stronger now than I was when you tried to break me. Walking away from that building felt like walking away from months of fear, shame, and powerlessness. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and corporate panic. Morrison Associates tried desperately to contain the story, but news of the settlement leaked to industry publications anyway. Morrison was terminated, effective immediately, and faced his own legal consequences. The company implemented new harassment policies and mandatory training programs, changes that should have existed years ago. But the most satisfying moment came unexpectedly. I was having coffee with Rachel when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Morrison's profile had been updated. His impressive title at Morrison Associates was gone, replaced by Seeking New Opportunities. Look at this, I showed Rachel. His network was shrinking as people distanced themselves from the scandal. Former colleagues who had once sought his favor were suddenly unavailable for his calls. Maria called with updates on his situation. He's having trouble finding employment, she reported. Word travels fast in your industry, and most companies won't touch him now. I felt a complex mix of emotions, not quite satisfaction, but a sense that justice was finally being served. The financial settlement allowed me to take time to heal and consider my next steps carefully. Several companies reached out after hearing about my case, impressed by my courage to speak out. One offer came from a firm specifically committed to workplace equality and ethical leadership. "We need people like you," the CEO, Catherine Wells, told me during our interview. "People who won't stay silent when something is wrong." I appreciate that, but I need to know that this company actually lives up to those values. Fair question. Let me introduce you to some of our team members so you can hear directly from them about our culture. My first day at the new job felt like a fresh start. Catherine was everything Morrison wasn't: ethical, respectful, and genuinely supportive of her employees. The company culture was transparent and safe. During my first team meeting, I looked around the room and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine safety. I was no longer the victim of someone else's abuse of power. I was a survivor who had fought back and won. 6 months later, I received an unexpected email. Morrison had somehow found my personal address and written me a long letter. In it, he apologized for his poor judgment and claimed he'd been going through personal problems that led to his behavior. He asked for my forgiveness and mentioned that the scandal had cost him his marriage and his relationship with his children. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the fear I'd lived with, the sleepless nights, the way he'd systematically tried to destroy my self-worth and sanity. I deleted the email without responding. Some things don't deserve forgiveness, especially when the apology only comes after consequences arrive. I learned that speaking up doesn't just protect yourself. It protects everyone who comes after you. 2 other women from Morrison's past came forward after my case became public, sharing their own stories of harassment and intimidation. The pattern was undeniable, and together we had finally stopped it. Today, I genuinely love my job. I wake up excited to go to work instead of dreading it. I've been promoted twice and am working on projects that actually matter to me. Catherine has become both a mentor and a friend, showing me what healthy professional relationships actually look like. "You've really found your voice here," she told me during my 6-month review. "Your confidence has grown tremendously." Sometimes young women in the office come to me with concerns about inappropriate behavior or workplace harassment. I listen to their stories, share my experience when appropriate, and help them understand their options. I've become the person I wish I'd had when Morrison was making my life hell. "You saved me from making a terrible mistake," one young intern told me after I helped her report a supervisor's inappropriate advances. "I was going to just quit and find another job." "Never let anyone drive you away from opportunities you've earned," I told her. "Fight for your place." I learned that staying silent protects predators, not victims. I learned that fighting back is terrifying but necessary. Most importantly, I learned that I am far stronger than I ever imagined. Morrison thought he could break me, but instead, he helped me discover just how unbreakable I really am. These days, when I walk into my office building, I hold my head high. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm not silent anymore. I'm free.